Do 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 do. You know, outside of outside of any fanboy talk, and there's a lot of it out there. Everybody calls me a Fuji fanboy because I'm all the time talking about Fuji. Well, you know, in the case of Fuji, I actually put my damn money where my damn mouth is. No one's, pulling my strings to say anything about any company. I mean, I've made bold statements against Nikon, a lot of the stupid stuff that they do, and the same especially goes for Sony. If you actually remove all the fanboy stuff, and if you actually were to look at it from the standpoint of the company, we actually have to look at the figures of like professional photography gear. And there's one thing, or there's several things actually, but there's one thing that Nikon and Canon are not worried at all about Sony, and that is if you do any or go to any place where you see someone doing hardcore sports action. Of course, you're not going to run upon someone doing wildlife photography, like some guy out in the middle of the woods stalking down brown bear with his 800mm Nikon. But hardcore sports action, wildlife photojournalism, Sony isn't there. And I think people forget that when you buy a camera, it's not just a camera, it's an ecosystem. I'm not a car person, but weren't there several cars in the not too distant past that everybody thought was really cool? It's like, well, isn't that great? It's a really small company that just started making these damn things. There's nobody in the world that knows how to fix the damn thing if you break down on the side of the road with it, and there's no parts available for it. An ecosystem. You see stuff like this? This is the reason why Nikon is scratching their crotch and picking their teeth with a silver toothpick. Because there's nobody at a sporting event, hardcore sporting, photojournalism, wildlife, especially wildlife, that Sony doesn't have anything. Sony's not even a camera company. They're a consumer electronics company. I mean, their main focus is worried about competing with Xbox and Nintendo. And it's good that they're making tons of money with their sensor systems, selling sensors, but Nikon and other entities are sick of that crap, and they're about to chop the gonads off of Sony. I told you that was coming. And that's exactly what's happening. Even Petapixel reported on it like a month ago. Tower Jazz, an Israeli company, of course, is a wholly owned ownership of sensor manufacturing, formerly Panasonic manufacturing, and I forget what province in Japan. But they're also opening up in China. Huge. Now, of course, it's going to take a couple of years, maybe 3, to get those facilities fully online. But Sony can see the writing on the wall. Their monopoly on sensors, not that they had a monopoly, but they've essentially got a monopoly, but their monopoly on sensors is over. It's not over today, it's not over tomorrow, but it's soon to be over. As a betting person and not a stock market player, I'm not betting on Sony for anything. I mean, it's an undeniable fact that prosumer camera stuff is a dwindling market. There's still a hardcore need. Doesn't matter how good the cell phones are that come out. Nothing's going to touch stuff like this. I mean, get a grip, Somehow, some way or another, grab your crotch and realize that no matter what sort of technology comes out, nothing is going to beat huge, fast glass for professional sports action, wildlife, and photojournalism, photography, and event photography. I mean, there's this crap and nothing else. Sony doesn't have this. This is why Nikon's, sitting in a rocking chair, scratching their crotch and picking their teeth and drinking lemonade. Because they know that Sony's not there. And, if you're a fanboy or not, I really don't give a damn one way or the other if you are or not. But, if you just ask yourself a damn question. Do you really think that Sony has a snowflake's chance in hell of catching up with decade after decade after decade after decade after decade of lens manufacturing, when it comes to Nikon? They haven't got a chance in hell. And the days of any of these companies being slave to Sony for sensors is very soon to be over. Everybody told me I was full of crap when I said the sensor in the Nikon D850 was a Tower Jazz sensor, which is basically a Panasonic sensor. And it turns out that's the case. uh, Nikon is not worried. I mean, the camera market's shrinking. I mean, Pentax is very, very soon to go belly up and shart themselves. You know, and you ever seen one of those dead rodents that's laying upside down and its little claws are curled in like that? Actually, what will happen is the Chinese will buy Pentax to keep them alive. Hasselblad's a dead entity that's been bought by the Chinese. Canon hasn't rolled out anything in 5 years. Fujifilm is just destroying everybody. They've done end runs around Nikon and everybody else. Made a better product for cheaper, no less. Endless firmware updates, far superior customer service. Fujifilm holds no deal, even though Fujifilm's been making glass for, God, since when? The 1920s? 1930s, wasn't it? When Fujifilm first started making some lenses. They hold no delusions about what Nikon and Canon have. So, the next time someone tells you about their latest, greatest Sony, just like say, yeah. I said, what is it? So did Sony then? Yeah. It's just, they can't work. Camera's an ecosystem. Camera's only a device. You know, it's like being the first. Oh, remember back in the day when Ford rolled out the cars? Was it the Model T? Which was the first car, the first gasoline car? Was it the Model T or the Model A? I can't remember. It got shipped to some places, and let me grab my pipe. I gotta grab my pipe over here. And when they delivered some of these Model A's or Model T's, whatever the hell the first car was, and the old man in the street is like, "That's a fancy, fine vehicle you got there, boy. Except closest gas station's yonder, about 100 miles. There's no infrastructure to support those vehicles." Back in the day, this is way back in the day when the automobiles first came out. And the first thing everybody did was buy 2 gigantic gas cans, because there weren't that many gas stations. So it might be wonderful, your new Sony, or a Sony you're thinking about. And, if you're just doing, weddings, typical photojournalism stuff, which a lot of it is 7200, 24/7. Same thing with wedding photography. Sony's got quite a few lenses. Of course, Sony doesn't make lenses. I mean, they have Zeiss make them for them, and they rob Canon's lens selection. Sony's not in the camera business; they're in the consumer electronics business. But it's not there. I mean, this stuff doesn't exist with Sony, and they haven't got a snowflake's chance of hell of within the next 5 years or even the next 10 years of catching up with 60, 70 years of Nikon lens manufacturing. Much less the damn fact that if you buy a Nikon, you've got like 10,000 pages of really cool used lenses on eBay to buy from. With Sony, the hell do you have if you buy a Sony? Let's be honest here. Now, you can certainly stick adapted lenses on it like I can with my Fuji. Isn't that wonderful? But as far as autofocus lenses, I mean, you're stuck buying a really expensive, overpriced damn lens. Usually made out of plastic and inferior to boot. Camera's never a camera. It's always an ecosystem. Some people back in the woods, I saw them fancy new automobiles in New York, boy, and I had one shipped out to me in Illinois. The only problem is, there ain't no gas stations out here. Yeah. Same sort of thing. Same sort of analogy applies. Now someone's going to gripe, "Oh, you're just a hater. Sony's got a lot of lenses." Yeah, sure they do. Yeah, point me to that 500mm f4, that 300mm 2.8, or, yeah, no. No, and no again. Thanks for watching.